everyone, and welcome to this week's edition of the Geeking Out podcast. I am the Athletic Geek, joined by.
A child, because I shaved. No, it's Dark Knight Zero. I
Hey
hadn't shaved
now.
since I haven't shaved since November, so like that's the longest I went. Because like basically now, because I'm shaving completely 2 to 3 to 4 times a year in pretty equal clips. I just didn't shave at all, other than like trimming my neck since November. And I was like,
Uh,
huh.
see, I can't bring myself to do a cosplay that involves me shaving, mainly because like the last time I fully shaved, like I felt like like I'm Samson. That was my mane, you know.
And I can't seem to find a cosplay that I like that doesn't involve me shaving.
I'm pretty well like destined to be like, like, okay, well, maybe Solid Snake, kind of had a beard here. Of Nick Fury kind of had a beard there.
I
Grizzly
finally
Adams
had
had a
a.
beard.
He did. I had a Snake cosplayer at the con actually walking around with the box. I was quite impressed. Like
Nice.
that was the first time I'd ever seen one walking around with the actual fully forted out box. I'm like, that's dedication. I'm like, the one thing you got to do is you got to get like a micro ejector exclamation point that makes a noise. He's like, I'm working on it.
So last week we discussed phase one, or at least Iron Man 1 to the first Avengers movie. So this week we are going to do phase two. Which I know a lot of people believe that Iron Man 3 is still part of phase one. That's kind of open to interpretation, but it wasn't. Let's be
No,
real.
let's be real.
Um,
Marvel says it's not.
um,
So
and we teased this last week.
we did.
Hmm, sorry, got a mint in my mouth, and it was not being cooperative. So we're gonna start off talking about Iron Man 3, which was teased, and last week I compared it to Notre Dame football, and the seasons that Notre Dame football had, those years they came out, when Iron Man, or comparing Iron Man 2 to Iron Man 3, and I mentioned how Iron Man 2, they just come off. The last years they were 3-9, 7-6, and 6-6. So when that year they went 8-5 and ended the season on a 4-game winning streak, beating, a ranked opponent and beating their arch nemesis for the first time in, 9 years, and winning the Sun Bowl against an old rival in the University of Miami. We walked away from that season with a good taste in our mouths, when objectively 8-5 is not a great season. Okay. So then we come to 2013, and my Irish go 12-1, only losing the national championship game to Alabama. And then later that year, they went 9-4. Again, finished the season ranked in the top 25. They beat a couple arch rivals. They won the Pinstripe Bowl to finish out the year. Not a good season, all things considered. But when you were in the national championship the year before, you're like, that year's not quite as good. Was it better than the year, the last year? Absolutely it was. Or the last year, where in comparison, absolutely. But now you have a standard. You have this is what we're capable of. This is amazing. This is a name. We are names here, and that isn't good enough. That is Iron Man 3. That is, you had firmly established this universe. You have firmly established what these characters are capable of. Not to mention, this thing had a and I'll say this, I had read Civil War by this point, and I hated Iron Man. My hatred of Iron Man had begun. And when the trailer for this dropped late 2012, I was pumped. I was like, this is going to be like, they're going in a dark direction with this. You know, they're dealing with this PTSD. There's the Mandarin, and they've got Ben Kingsley to play the Mandarin.
Oh, I have a rant to go on about this.
Go
ahead. Go ahead.
I'll let you go on that rant because you'll probably because I know your rants are at least for the most part you still like can make points. I just yell. So
it's not even about me not liking the movie. It's about the hypocrisy of people in race casting.
But you have the Mandarin. You have one of the greatest actors of all time playing that role.
Yep.
You know, you're gonna what's the because I watched the motion comic that they had about it. I didn't read it, but I watched they had like a motion comic on Netflix about this, and I watched it. I don't remember. Remember, I hate Iron Man, so like there are things about this that don't necessarily stay in the old brain there. And I just like this was the first time in quite some time I've completely walked out of a movie going, ugh. And you know, like I said, objectively, it was good. It was better than Iron Man 2. It wasn't as good as 1, but it was better than Iron Man 2. You know. But again, much like my Irish, hey, you've proven you can be better than being, you know, you've proven how good you can be. So, you know, when you're here and you don't know how good you are, that's okay. But when you know you can be here, being here isn't acceptable. And it was going to be a good movie. Then they made the Mandarin a joke.
They made the guy who wasn't the Mandarin a joke.
Yeah.
Because the real Mandarin in the movie is awesome.
True. Yeah, so he wasn't, it felt, I mentioned, and this is going to come up soon, how there's a lot of Marvel movies that I like for the comedy. You know, but this felt like forced comedy. This felt like Vince Russo wrote this. Swerve, bro, he's not really the Mandarin. And it's funny. Look at how funny it is, bro. That's what happened. It's like you sacrificed. And I get Marvel's supposed to be a little more lighthearted than what they were trying, what they were doing later on with DC later. Like, okay, this is supposed to be more, you know. But again, it's just why? Like it felt forced. It felt like just it was just it was bad. It was bad. You were gonna go back to the promised land, but then you blew this game. You should have won. You were there. You were there. You were going back to the ship. You's going to the ship. What? No, you didn't go to the ship. And it's just and to hear so many people justify this, it's just kind of like you put so much, you've put so many other movies under a microscope, and yet you're like letting this one go. Why? Where's the micro? You don't even need a microscope for this one. Like it's there, it's right there. It's punching you in the face, going, "Look at what we did, you guys. Look at this decision we made." I don't get it. It ruined the movie. It ruined something really cool. It looked like they were going to try. And it just. Thank God I hated Iron Man, because I could swallow that bitter pill much better knowing, like, well, but fuck Iron Man at least. Now go ahead.
So,
We're starting hot today, ladies and gents.
I'm going to start off before I go on my rant that has nothing to do about the quality of the movie, but like speaks to exactly what I was just hearing here. I loved this movie. I did. And I'm going to go on a slight rant about talking about not going under the microscope, about how this one should have.
Yeah.
So, we like to get mad, most people do, when the race of a character gets switched.
Yes.
So, I'm going to bring up two examples. One of them is the Mandarin.
That is true.
We talked about movies on this podcast that we liked. And I've said that the Dark Knight films got worse as they went along, in my opinion. And one of the best villains is in the first one. A man named Ra's al Ghul. Now, do you want to let me know what the nationality of a Mr. Al Ghul is in the comics?
I'd say Middle Eastern.
Cool. Does anyone know who the most Irish person to ever exist that played him was?
Yeah. Yeah.
And do you know who complained about it? No one! Why? Because it was good! Then, and every time a race swap gets done, people bitch. And now the Mandarin is one that's even worse in my opinion. The Mandarin, again, based off that name and his comic origin, what nationality should this man be?
He should be Chinese.
Probably Chinese. They announce that Sir Ben Kingsley is going to play him. No one bats a fucking eyelash. No one! Tom Hardy plays Bane. We should burn that movie to the ground. Ben Kingsley plays the Mandarin. And people only got upset when they found out he wasn't a Chinese person.
I mean,
they
when
got
you're right,
upset
you're right.
when he wasn't the Mandarin. This is
I'm
what drives me nuts about something.
I'm with you. Like but like I said, when it comes to race swapping, I don't mind it if it's good and if it makes sense. If you're just doing it to pound your chest and go and look at us.
I know, but there's a lot of movies that don't pound their chest and say, look at us. And they went, this guy has nothing, so we made him Mexican. Like, Voss from Far Cry. What's his name? Oh, something Montenegro. I can't think of what his name is. But Mac Gargan, you don't think Spanish American when you hear Mac Gargan, right?
No.
They like the guy who plays them in the for the 20 seconds that you saw him at the end of Homecoming. He's a Mexican American. So again, doesn't matter. And but people will get mad about something that tiny when the race didn't matter. But yet, the Mandarin is one of the most English people to ever exist, and people only got upset when he turned out to not be the Chinese Iranian also terrorist. An Iranian terrorist was named the Mandarin?
Yeah.
And no one got upset.
Yeah, you're right.
An Iranian, Chinese named terrorist played by an Englishman that got mad when he wasn't the That blew my mind when all of a sudden they're like, no, I'm actually just playing the Chinese guy. I'm not actually Chinese. I don't know why an English person has this accent right now that I'm portraying, but I was like, how are y'all upset? Like, the twist, whatever, but y'all are all of a sudden mad that the Englishman isn't playing a Chinese person? But that in race will never not blow my mind that people didn't get upset about those when they're the worst cases of it ever done in existence. That
And
is like the joke of Ryan Gosling playing Black Panther.
I mean, again, these people on the internet like immediately, and this goes everywhere. Like people immediately when they do a race swap, like fold their arms and go, "Well, I'm going to see it now." It's like, well, give it a shot, and then if it sucks, then fold your arms. You
Yes, and
know,
say it sucks because the acting was bad and not
yeah,
because of the person's skin color.
because the acting was bad, and you just basically said, look at us right now. You
Yeah.
know,
If it was bad, if the
it was
role was
bad,
bad,
and exactly,
if the role was bad, no matter what the skin color would have been, then it wasn't the person's race that was the problem.
yeah,
Right?
exactly.
But okay.
But
Anyway,
you have two sorts of fans when it comes. You have the fold arms. This is bad before you even give a chance to see if the acting was good or not. Because again, Michael Clark Duncan was an amazing Kingpin,
I saw a very
and
funny post about that, by the way,
really,
when the Daredevil Born Again came up. A guy was
the thing
faking
about
like
they whitewashed the
whitewash
Kingpin. Yeah,
Kingpin, and like and King and Bullseye's not even Irish anymore. What are?
but then you also have the sort of people online that are just like, hey, like that will, you'll have people like, hey, I think the acting was bad and that shouldn't have been done. And then they'll be like, but, like how dare you? How dare you? Don't you know, don't look at what we've done.
Yeah, there is that part of it.
Look,
There is very much
look
that
at
part
the
of it.
beautiful thing that we have done.
Uh-huh.
And it's just kind of like, again, I'm not going to know what it's like to not feel represented
Mm-hmm.
in comic book movies.
Yep.
I am a straight Caucasian male. Okay,
We're not in the
I'm not at a
minority here.
loss for representation,
No.
and I'm not going to act like I know what it's like to not feel represented due to my race or my gender or my sexuality.
Yep.
Like that's not my fight, because from the get go, yeah.
Yeah. No,
So I
for
can't,
sure.
I'm trying not to speak out of turn when I say
No,
this,
I get what you're saying.
but I don't know if I would feel like the selling point is, but look, everybody, it's my gender now, or it's my race now, or it's my sexuality now being the only thing interesting about what you've done to a character. I don't know if
Especially
that
the
would make
first
me
thing.
feel represented if I was in their shoes. I'll never know what it's like. What count like the South Park. I get it now. I don't get it. That
Yeah.
I accept that. Like I get it that I don't get it.
Yeah. No,
But
I've
but
always said that when I find out about the character and you don't tell me what the character does and you tell me it's gender first, then that shows me how the thought process of how he came up with the character, and it's not good. And like I said, I don't care what they are. One of my favorite characters in all of creation is Lee Ron Littner, and they are I don't know what to classify them as mechanic. I don't know which way they're transitioning, but they didn't make that a big deal. They were
yeah,
just a mechanic.
and they had a sexually charged one-liner.
Yeah. Manly twist. But anyway, back to
But
the actual movie.
yeah,
I did like it. I didn't feel I didn't feel the humor was as forced as other things because it's very much in line with the type of humor that this guy who directed it has done before. It's very Lethal Weapon type of humor.
yeah,
So like, and to me, they did show enough of the PTSD, but again, it's Marvel. They're not going to go as dark as humanly possible as they might need to be with something like that. But they had some good jokes and some other things. Well, there's some stuff that was over the top. Yes. Do I wish they would not have shown all the suits being coming out in the very like second trailer? Yeah. But there were some great moments about it, like some fake outs and stuff with using Iron Patriot as the rebrand that I thought was actually a really good idea, and showing how much Tony hated it because thought it was a dumb idea. Because at that point, they had no idea they were going to be able to work with Sony. So the whole Dark Avengers Norman Osborn was way out of there.
yeah.
Um, For those who don't know, Jenna Ortega is also in that movie for roughly 2.5 seconds. It's the president's daughter with the fake leg that the bomb is underneath.
Yeah.
Because, but I thought the stuff with Happy was all right.
That was good with him getting hurt, and you really see the friendship between Tony and Happy. That part I liked a lot.
Yeah,
like Happy's kind of being happy with show me your name badge. I need to see your name badge. Have it out. Yeah. And then when he's in the hospital, Tony actually like, hey, he really cares about those badges. Just make sure you're
wearing them. And I liked the stuff with him finding out, and it only got back drawn on because it's Marvel and they have to keep the train a chugging. I genuinely liked that, like, I'm not just a suit, I'm a person.
Yeah.
That idea I thought was great. It would have been the great end of a trilogy. It didn't help that magically that all of a sudden he's like, I'm going to make 8 billion suits and have them be the armor around the world so that I don't have to do it.
Yeah.
In freaking Avengers. But that's the thing where these movies are all being written and filmed at the same damn time around. So you really can't avoid that all the time. And they've said multiple times in this that they have 6 points or so to hit in a movie for continuity, and then other than that, they can do whatever the hell they want. So the surgery to get rid of all that, I was like, he's becoming a different thing, whatever. Because it's kind of ludicrous to a point to where you would, that at least in my opinion, that after a while he couldn't actually fix it to where he didn't need the arc reactor to live.
Right.
Because, like, you went to space, you encountered aliens, at some point, you can figure out a way to not need to live with the arc reactor. You need magnets. So, I wasn't one of those people that was another level of pissed off about that.
That was nothing compared to what angered me about that movie. Yeah. But you mentioned it's Marvel, you got to keep chugging along, the humor, that's Marvel. There's the movie that came out the following year. It's not the next in line that we're going to talk about, but a movie that came out the following year that had the tone that Iron Man 3 should have had, that didn't feel forced, didn't feel like they sacrificed anything in the slightest to make that movie. So again, it's one of those like this, when 1 year later that movie comes out and I'm like, wow, like this was serious, this was dark, this was deep, but it had some humor in it. Like you still had your funny moments, you still had your, hey, it's still fun. It's Marvel, everybody. When you proved a year later you could have your cake and eat it too. Why was that not able to be done the previous year? And then, of course, when Vince Russo started writing the movie, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. As soon as I start seeing Viagra on a pole, I'll believe that it's Vince Russo levels of writing.
Spoilers, bro!
We got Buff Bagwell's mom on a forklift, bro.
What if Demandolin is not Demandolin and it's a joke? And just bring David Arquette in to be the real villain, bro. Actually, I'm not even going to bash David Arquette because he retroactively earned that WCW World Title reign with his run on the Indies, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, like that, like I said, maybe I'm mad about it for the wrong reasons, but I just remember kind of thinking like that is like where like farts, like when that happened, is just like ultimately in my head like fart sound. And I went from like, oh, okay, where we go?
I had a good feeling. I had a good feeling they were going to show the actual one later, and that was the point of that.
I mean, you could have made the. You could have still used that, but just making it like a punchline. That rubbed me the right. It's not so much that he wasn't the man, Durin. but it was the fact that it just turned into be just a giant. This is like, remember that Joel Schumacher line? Remember, it's a cartoon. Like
That was
that
not
really
that
gave me
level
that
to
vibe.
me, at least. At least to me, it wasn't that level. Because at that point, you want the person playing the guy to not be that guy, because otherwise he should just be that guy. Because if you're having a guy the same level intense as the Mandarin playing the Mandarin, he's not playing an actor.
But that's the problem. I didn't want him to play an actor. He could just be like, this was just some 2-bit schmuck. I found him, he tried to do some terrorist attacks and I took him under my wing and, thought he could get the paranoia, but I'm the guy. Like that could have been, you know, you could have done it that way. You know what I mean?
Well, then at that point, I would have made the guy an actual terrorist. That's what I'm getting at. I wouldn't
like,
have
or,
had a guy
he
kind
could
of
have,
be
like
a
I'm saying, like he could
terrorist.
have been a terrorist, but he couldn't have. He could have been like just low level, and then the main guy go like, "I can use you," you know, like in wrestling where you find out like, you know, okay, like you think this guy is like king shit, but really there's another level and there's another, guy you got to deal with. Something like that. You think you've gone through the whole corporation, but oh no, the rock turned as well. Oh, you think they've sell everything, but Triple H joined the corporation. Just stuff like that. You know, you think by beating Daniel Bryan thinking by beating John Cena he's the man, but oh fuck, here's Triple H and he's pedigreeing you and he's got his guy. Something like that. Like that that happened the same year as this movie. So, something just not going so jokey. I'm not like one of those that's like it's all got to be dark. It's all got to be comic books art to serious business. I'm not one of those guys, but like that was just too much. That was too much for my tastes. But moving on. Speaking of funny, we have, and I even forget what it's called because
Are you talking about
it's Thor, but I forget
Thor:
which
The
Thor.
Dark World?
The Dark World. I keep getting that and Ragnarok mixed up.
The movie that you described Iron Man 3 is what, in my opinion, this movie is. And
But
I like this movie.
now, see, for me, like I made clear my thoughts on Thor. Like it's when I go into Thor thinking it's a comedy, I'm fine, and it was a comedy. Like they did have some good moments when Thor's mom died, and then they had the guy that my equivalent of I did not care for the Godfather, the character of Loki, and it showed his reaction in his cell after he finds out. Like that was great. Like that was well done. But like the only things I remember about this movie are the funny bits. I remember Selvig like going off the deep end with all after being having his mind taken over. I remember Loki like doing body warps and then like, oh, it's Captain America, everybody. And then I remember the Stan Lee cameo of Selvig trying to explain, and he's like using shoes to explain. And then Stanley just goes like, "Can I have my shoe back?" Like that's all I remember about this movie. I remember those funny bits, and that's it. Like I've seen it a couple times. I'm sorry I don't have more to add to everybody listening, but I don't. It was a fun movie. I smiled. The end.
That's pretty much what I've got with it too.
Yeah.
It was a very much just kind of it happened movie. I thought it was very funny when he hung Mjolnir on the coat rack. That I thought was hilarious, and apparently that was improv. Um, yeah, the scene with the mom, and again, I'm on the other end of it that I really like Loki, so a lot of his stuff in Sui I liked quite a bit. But and again, any time I get Darcy doing anything, I really love Darcy. Yeah, just Sui just kind of happened,
Yeah.
and it was a stopping point to get the Aether to the Collector to introduce the Guardians. So
Yeah.
kind of just, I mean, the idea of the portals and like whipping around and stuff was cool,
Yeah.
but eh. This is what, like, this movie, when people talk about phase 1 through 3 were all nonstop bangers when they're making fun of Captain America Brave New World, when Captain America Brave New World is like the Shawshank Redemption compared to this.
Yes. Well, I haven't seen it yet, but I mean,
I'm like, y'all forget some of the movies that happened in that wonderful period.
It's that again. I went to it. It's that Marvel name, that MCU name. Like it it did so much for so many people, and it made it. It was something so magical, and it was something that made all of this legit. That I feel people are blinded by it. People are blinded by that Marvel name, that they're like, everything's great. This was Marvel, everybody. And especially because what I learned even before, because there was no real wrestling competition at this time, the only thing more tribal than wrestling fans are comic book fans. And by God, this legitimized everything, and DC was late to the party, and you must be fucking stupid if you think anything outside of the Dark Knight trilogy was good.
And speaking of that, speaking of Marvel and wrestling fans being bad, stupid wrestling fans are the reason why the girl who plays Darcy, Kat Dennings, stopped talking about wrestling on her Twitter because she tried to be a
Yes.
celebrity that liked wrestling, and no one was gonna have it because they were watching the wrestling she wanted to watch.
Nope. Yeah. Very disappointed to hear you like WWE. Might I interest you in AEW? It's like, fuck all of you. I
Guys, we
said
have
that
one of
on
the
our first
most
episode.
we have one of the great, an unbelievable human being who also happens to be a beautiful woman that is trying to like wrestling. Do you wonder why no one, when they hear about people that like wrestling, think you're a normal person? Y'all are the reason why!
Mm-hmm.
You give all of us a bad name.
And again, like, I'm not trying to keep harping on this, but it's that comparison again. Like, everything that this did was a banger. And it's like, well, Thor the Dark World wasn't really anything memorable, but then but then you'll have somebody go like, didn't you just say remember that joke? Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So it did its job. And then I'm
Okay.
like, okay, well, I think that Batman vs Superman is better. Like, how? Like, that is preposterous. Do you not understand how Thor the Dark World had, the idea of Loki still loving his mother despite realizing that that's not his mother? Do you not understand like how great that is? What Martha? What do you think's better, Martha? Martha? Are you dumb? Are you dumb? Do you not understand what makes comic book movies good?
It's like, you can have good ideas and me still not like it.
Yeah.
Or not be as high on it.
Or just you can,
Like,
you know.
Speaking of that, you want to know something crazy? It took until that moment in Batman vs Superman for me to realize
Yes.
factually that those two had the same mother's
Mother's
first names.
name,
I was like,
yeah.
whoa, hold on. How have I been reading and watching comic book shows and not realize this?
It's been 20 years since I discovered Batman.
I legit
Whoa.
had a moment in the theater going,
Mm-hmm.
wait, what?
Yeah,
How is Zack Snyder the first guy to bring this up?
I know, right? But it's like the wrestling tribes again. It's like, how dare you think that this thing that looks cool online that we have determined online, because as mainstream as MCU was, like, online was like the big, well, fuck DC.
Mm-hmm.
You comic book resources was the ultimate, like, oh, that's where I learned all of the, you like the Flash? What are you, stupid? Don't you know that Tony Stark's right over? I mean, like, he's literally right there, and you're watching a man who runs fast. Oh, you like Green Lantern? The most, ooh, that's like so cheap. Don't you understand that Thor is just right over there, and you could be smart in partaking in Thor, but instead you're choosing to read Green Lantern, which, by the way, his movie was trash too. And I just don't get how somebody can just be that dumb. I just don't get it. And that's like, I never thought it, like, I guess I'm happy the fact that there's two wrestling companies now, that there's two.
Mm-hmm.
But now, like, I'm seeing, it's like, I can't believe, like, fucking Will Ospreay is right there, and you think that Cody Rhodes and John Cena is going to be good. I cannot believe someone could be just so ignorant of what is good. And
Calm down,
not
Dave Meltzer.
gatekeeping, not
Calm down, Dave
gatekeeping.
Meltzer.
Yeah. not not even Dave Meltzer. Like, these are like the minions of Dave Meltzer.
I know.
And just lost my train of thought there. But, like, the thing that just is just so, how can you think this is good? It's like, not trying to gatekeep, but I guarantee you haven't seen as much wrestling as me. I'm not. I hate saying that because it makes me look like a gatekeeping douchebag, which I don't like doing it. But, like, there's been so many times, like, I'm like, okay, let's debate. Oh, you think Will Ospreay is the greatest? Well, I mean, have you seen Kenta Kobashi? And I'm not trying to be that guy, but I'm like, I think this guy's better. I think Eddie Guerrero. I'm like, and I'm pointing out, like, and here's what Eddie did in Mexico, just because I've seen it. And they're like, well, Will Ospreay. Well, you said you like Cody Rhodes, so that's all null and void now. And, like, with comic books, it's like, okay, well, I like this thing because this reminded me of this from this story, or, and I feel like in this, you don't think the Flash is deep. I disagree, because if you read this, or you don't think Superman's that deep. Okay, well, I disagree, because if you've read Whatever Happened to the Man Tomorrow and Birthright and For All Seasons, you'll see just how deep Superman can be, and they'll be like, overpowered, and he thinks glasses are a, and then, like, the Marvel fans, like, circle the wagons on then at that time comic book resources. They circle the wagons, and they're like, yeah, overpowered. Thinks glasses are a disguise. Like how stupid. Like, that's what happens. And it's just like, again, you don't have to read everything. You don't have to watch all the wrestling. Like, I am not somebody that thinks, like, okay, you like this? Well, here's this big book of matches, or this big, stack of comic books you must read to consider yourself a fan. I'm not like that. But when people get tribal like that and get snooty, I'm just like, how much have you really seen?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you don't have any less of a right to your opinion, and it's not as illegitimate, but, like, are you really just coming after people because there's someone that knows more than you?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to be that much of a douchebag, you better have an encyclopedic fucking, like, library of knowledge on the subject if you're going to be a prick.
Mm-hmm. I get you.
Yeah. But why can't we just not be pricks and like what we like?
Because then we wouldn't have the internet. Social media was a mistake.
I believe it.
There's a whole
Despite the fact that we're here.
There's a whole entire dedicated. I know, I say it all the time. There's a dedicated chunk of my podcast, a social media mistake, and I always started out as coming as a guy on a podcast who advertises on Twitter. We should not have Twitter.
Yep.
I will always mention, and then people get on podcasts and bitch like I'm doing right now.
That's the negativity. Now we're going to go to something I want to talk about because this is positivity, my friend. This is maybe top 2 or 3 favorite superhero movie of all time, underneath only Dark Knight. And yeah, that's a bare basic fucking opinion to have, but I feel like it's worth it. You know, it is Captain America: The Winter Soldier. This
one that brought the Russos into the MCU,
and not
the
Vince.
Community guys.
But like, to me, this movie was the perfect Marvel movie, other than X-Men, or Logan, which was not in the same canon until now, I guess. This was fucking comic book movie perfection personified. It served every possible master you could want to serve in a comic book movie. And the funniest thing is, and I said this in episode 1, it really didn't even feel like a comic book movie. It was a spy action thriller. It was a Bourne movie.
That was one thing that at this point they started to do a little bit differently, which is what I appreciated about the movies that they went on. They figured, hey, we want to make a spy thriller with Captain America. Cool. We want to get to that point, and that point. What characters would work best to get us from that point to that point to that point and make sense? Versus the old comic book movies that went, we want to put these 5 characters in a movie, write a script that makes it work.
Yes.
And that is what made it great. Because, again, it just feels like a movie you're watching that happens to have comic book characters in it.
Yes.
And
like this is a spy thriller about a secret. You could do this movie where a veteran army general is so good at his job that he, does work with the CIA on the side. There's somebody, helping infiltrate the CIA. Come to find out that there's still a big Nazi movement going on. And I'm not. It feels weird, like I'm kind of half describing real life, but I digress. And those people have to stop them, and then you find out how deep the Nazi movement goes, and you find out that somebody that had that was just around, you didn't realize it because he was hiding in plain sight. Way back in Iron Man 2 was part of this movement. And one of the, that's what made it so good. Obviously I love Captain America. Obviously I'm glad it was a comic book movie. Obviously I'm glad that they brought in things like Winter Soldier and Falcon and all the things that you could do as a comic fan to make this movie spectacular. But you could take them out and just replace, and you would have a damn good spy action thriller. You just found a way to incorporate comic book characters into a good movie. And make that good movie a great movie.
Oh, yeah.
And the most underrated thing about this whole movie was there was an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show, which wasn't my favorite. It was okay. But the way that whenever S.H.I.E.L.D. falls in Winter Soldier, and then you watch the next episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and S.H.I.E.L.D. has fallen, and some of the S.H.I.E.L.D. members that you were attached to, turns out they were also part of Hydra. You're like, whoa. It's like when you were reading comic books, and then in one comic book, something earth-shattering and universe-shaking happens, and then the next, in something universe-shaking happens in Superman. And then you're reading Green Lantern, and then it's like, oh, the tone has shifted in Green Lantern because the universe has changed based on what just happened in Superman. That's brilliant. That was brilliant.
Yeah. absolutely. I didn't like Agents of Shield as much as most people did. It was
I
okay.
did not either.
There was a lot of people that put that on. It's like it's the most interactive. Blah, blah, like, then why do they never mention it in the movies? That relationship
Yeah.
was one way.
Yep.
Everyone liked to
Yep.
say it wasn't, but it was. But the carrier shows up and they never mention how it got there.
Yeah. Like that was again. But it's in the Marvel universe, you guys. Like, like okay, like never mind that everything cool going on the Flash right now. No, that's in the Marvel universe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this is another rant. This is gonna be a rant-filled episode. This is not a rant about the quality of this movie. The rant actually helps the quality of this movie and kicks to bed a really stupid argument that I've heard for the longest time. Hey, do you remember why everyone said that Spider-Man 3 was bad?
There was a number of reasons, but go on.
The main one typically is because there's too many villains in it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Cool. I was looking up IMDb while you were doing this, just so you know I wouldn't be incorrect, because God knows I don't have people bitching about me being incorrect on a podcast. But there's 3 villains in Spider-Man 3. 2 of them are only roughly in it for like a third of the movie.
Right.
And then it's Venom the entire time until they show up in the ass end for about 10 minutes. So realistically, it's just a Venom movie the entire time.
Right.
In this movie, that also had like 9 heroes in it, if you count Natasha, freaking Kate, Sam Wilson, all Nick Fury. You had Batroc the Leaper, you had Crossbones, you had Pierce, you had Hydra, you had Arnim Zola, and you had the Winter Soldier. And 5 people. I'm probably missing another one. 6 villains? Wait. What's that I hear? Oh, it's the quality of writing them that makes the movie bad, not the number.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Blaming the number of villains, and I will concede that it did feel like in Spider-Man 3, with the 3 villains, it felt like they were trying to do too much. But as you said,
it was
that's
bad.
Quality of writing. That's quality of writing.
There's like 9 villains in Guardians of the Galaxy that we're going to get to, but it was good.
Yeah. Blaming 3 villains for the reason why Spider-Man 3 was bad is like blaming the interior decorator for why the Titanic sunk.
Exactly. But, one thing I appreciated about this movie, it made me realize there was 2 comic book characters that had the name Brock. Had no idea Crossbone's name was Brock Rumblo, so I was like, that's pretty cool. But, it introduced Sam Wilson, which was so good. I love Anthony Mackie, and the more I learn about him as a person, I really love Anthony Mackie. I totally forgot that he was in the Clarence and 8 Mile.
My first exposure to Anthony Mackie was the football movie We Are Marshall.
Oh, that's right.
That was my first time seeing Anthony Mackie, and I remember saying like, oh, it's the running back from We Are Marshall.
Yeah, so like that's Clarence. Like that guy's no gangster. His name Clarence, and his parents got a real nice marriage. But there's a great interview about that recently about how we had no idea Eminem was going to do that. He just came on stage and started ripping on him, and he's like, "What the hell, man?" But just the tone of this movie is always just leveled in exactly what it wants it to be the entire time. It never dips. There's comedy around it, but it makes it feel like this is one of the most felt like lived in Marvel movies they have. Like Natasha and him are just having coworkers talk as they're putting in earpieces, talking about people that work at S.H.I.E.L.D. Like, no, she's got a nose piercing. I don't want to know what to do with that, and some other stuff. They're just talking like coworkers, and it was wonderful. They're just like treating him like a person. Like when he jumps off without a parachute. Do you have a parachute? And he's just smiling like, no, he didn't. They're just going through this like it's a normal thing. It felt like the most like, this is just people that live in this world. And I appreciate the crap out of that. It always it didn't feel like anything was there that didn't need to be. It's one of the best movies that the Black Widow's in my opinion. She's so good in this.
I was still in my I don't quite trust you yet phase with Black Widow, but upon rewatch after the end of it, I'm like, okay, she's great.
Yeah, but this so I know we talked about this, but Jasper Sitwell, there's another villain that I forgot. I got the IMDb page open on my other monitor. But one thing that some people don't like, I don't know anyone on this podcast that would know it about me, but the last, I want to say 4 years of my grandma's life, she was put in a nursing home because of dementia
Mhm.
and Alzheimer's. She like boiled a pot of water clean through, so we had her put in a nursing home. But it was a nursing home like 2 blocks from my house. I saw her every single Tuesday and every single Sunday. I saw her for dinner on Tuesdays, and I saw her for church and lunch every single Sunday. And I got to see, I'm not gonna cry, the slow decline of like my grandma remembering exactly who I was to knowing who I was, but not knowing who I was to her.
Yeah.
In her exact words, I was always that cute boy that came by and gave her a kiss when he left. That's what it was toward the end of it. And then she passed away. Like something, I can't remember exactly what happened, but it was basically the calling card like grandma's gonna pass in the next few days. Like something happened, and
Yeah.
then my mom called me while I was at work and said, "You'd better get here now. It's not gonna last much longer." So I got in there, cleared out, held her hand, and she like passed like 5 minutes after that while I was holding her hand. I was very close to my grandma, and like the dementia thing hit me hard.
Mm.
When they have that scene with Steve and Peggy,
Yeah.
and they have them go through all of that, and then Peggy blanks and doesn't remember that that's Steve, and Steve just goes right into not even judging, no nothing. He's just like, I couldn't forget my best girl, especially when she owes me a dance. I just, it
Mm.
killed me, and it was done so well.
Yeah.
They didn't forget Peggy existed, and that made me so happy.
Yeah.
Because I saw Sharon, and I'm like, don't don't do that. I was fine with like moving on and having whatever, but don't forget that Peggy exists, and they didn't, and that I was just thank you that I had that, because that was a very good representation of what those days can be like.
Yes.
So it was very nice to see that. Yeah, everything about this was great. They got Robert Redford.
Hmm.
This was one of the first ones where I'm like, holy shit.
Yeah.
That's like a big name actor is in this
Yeah.
Marvel movie. And he's just a one-off villain. I'm like, holy
And he was
fuck.
great.
Yeah, he was amazing. And like there was a big rumor going around before this movie came out that he was going to be the Red Skull.
I maybe vaguely remember
There was a big,
message board talk about
because
that, but
I
yeah.
think there was either it was a comic book panel or something where this character has been a disguise for the Red Skull. I could be completely wrong, but it was something to that degree. And I was like, I wouldn't have hated that, but I'm not upset that it didn't happen.
Right.
Because Pierce was just awesome.
Yeah.
And the Hydra twist and everything was just great. And the fight choreography with Bucky in him in that first fight in the street, other than in Shang-Chi, they have not had a fist fight look that good ever.
Yeah.
It was just so good, like the Bucky, who's Bucky, and then like him chasing them down in a moving car on the freeway. All of that was just so good. Everything, and I forget about it, but one of my favorite things in this movie is obviously the chase around when he's like on your left. That to me
Yeah.
is funny because that's
And
like a
he has
Captain.
the
Go
yeah,
ahead.
but like that because that is Captain America. He's just like I'm just running, and he doesn't realize that like
No, and
yeah.
that's showing the lived-in thing. That's like no, that's something that would happen with Captain America. He would do 900 laps around there and not be tired. But the thing that made like the cool moments that they have with these characters that I don't feel they do as much
He
anymore,
had the list. I love the list.
the list that. But when he goes into the museum and he's just looking around, and that little kid notices who he is, and he just pushes his hat down and goes, and like acknowledges the kid that it's actually him, but tells him to not make a big scene. Like, that's when a superhero knows he's cool, but he knows he's a kid, so he's like wants to make the kid feel awesome. Like they don't,
Yeah.
and like no one in Marvel has a secret identity basically. So
Right.
it's like,
And when they do, it's the worst kept secret since Hannah Montana.
yes, that
Like-
was my only problem with the Flash show. I'm like, Barry, if you show another fucking person that you're the Flash, I'm gonna fucking kill you. I love the Flash until like season 4, but at that point, every time I was like, Barry, put your fucking mask on. I'm gonna kill you, Barry. You do not need to have your mask
I was
on to have
just
this
like,
conversation.
Like Matt Murdock, I love Daredevil, but like almost every storyline for the last 20 years around Daredevil's been like, but what if this villain outs him? But what if the Kingpin outs? But what if Bullseye were to out him?
What if we come up with ideas?
And then
So
like
I love
that's like
that.
basically Spider-Man. Like, but what if the Green Goblin were to out him? But what if Venom were to out him? So you're right. Yes,
Yeah, but yeah, it's just it was
the
such
list
a
with like
well-done movie.
Star Wars and all the different.
And I love that it was different in different countries.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I learned it like a month or so after the Blu-rays and stuff came out. Depending on what region you're in, that list is slightly different. Like not like completely, but like 2 or 3 things change to a more that region appropriate listing.
Okay.
But yeah, it was really cool. Like the list. I also love, everyone points this out, and he's like, on the list is Star Wars. His
And then
boss
Star Wars.
is Mace Windu.
That's a Martha moment right now. I just,
Yeah.
just like I knew it, but I didn't realize it. You know.
I'm just kind of like, I want him to sit down and watch. Like, that's one of the things where the end credit scene would have been him sitting down watching Star Wars, going, man, he looks familiar, but I just can't put my hand on it. But also at the end, I love that on his tombstone is the Bible verse that he quotes from Pulp
Yes.
Fiction. That is not correct to what the Bible verse is in the Bible, but he just says it anyway.
Yeah.
A little stuff like that is always great. Or like you notice that the Russos are in some scenes, but you never say that they're them. So it's like I believe the guy who came up with the Winter Soldiers in the movie for like one scene. But like there's
a lot of like, we'll probably never do an episode, but like I remember the same year this came out was when the same year or maybe the year before was when Days of Future Past came out, and like you see Lin Wine like just for a split second in Days of Future Past, and like for me I'm like, you know.
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, like I said, top 2 or 3, like no lower than 3 on my list.
No,
if I were to rank them, this movie is either underneath Dark Knight and Logan, or it's underneath just Dark Knight. And like I said, yeah, that's a bare basic thing to say, but fuck it.
It is. And like I have literally 2 people in my life, and it's my roommate and his brother, and they're some of my best friends. Both of them think this is the most boring movie they've ever watched. And they cannot explain it to me. It's like, it's a spy thriller. I don't like it. I'm like, you like Civil War?
Oh, that's gonna be fun when we get to that one.
I'm like, that thing is 90% politics. How did you not like this?
Yeah. Civil War is going to be the Iron Man 3 when we get back to the MCU. Just a fair warning. That is going to be my like, what the hell? You think this is that great? Really? Like that is my, yeah. But we're going to move on to another movie that I really liked for completely different reasons. Guardians of the Galaxy.
Oh, yes. Your pelvic sorcery.
This movie, like, I went into this with no expectations. No. I was just vaguely familiar with the Guardians. Like, I kind of like they were around in some Avengers books and some X-Men books that I had. I'd never fully read Guardians
And
to
not
that
this
point.
team of them, I'm going to assume.
None of them. I'd never really read a Guardians of the Galaxy comic book. Now they were doing cameos in the Avengers, or you had Groot and Rocket and Gamora and Star-Lord. So I knew who they were. Where I'm like, that's Star-Lord. Like, okay, that's Rocket Raccoon. Like, that's Drax the Destroyer. Like, I knew who they were, but I didn't know who they were.
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw this movie, and it's maybe there's different. There's a lot of hyperbole, fans use when it comes to, this is the greatest, this was the best action, most action packed. This was maybe the most fun
Yeah, I would agree with
comic
that.
book movie I've ever seen.
It's up there.
That doesn't mean it's the, number one, it's the best, but it's maybe the most fun I've had um watching a comic book movie. Like, it was just like, I mentioned the Thor movies where, like, I just watch it as comedy and I can go, neat. But this one was like, I watch it as comedy and it's neat, but then they have like so many other good things in it. Um, you had good story, you had good action, you had intrigue for the next one. I mean, it's in my top 10,
Mm-hmm.
and it's the most fun movie in my top 10. And I never liked Batista as a wrestler. I've said this on a previous episode.
Mm-hmm.
Never liked Batista. Dave Batista is, maybe other than Will Ospreay and Shane Douglas, my least favorite wrestler of all time. I could not stand
Wow.
Batista. Yeah. Yeah, I just like, he is the epitome. Like, go away. But I fucking love him as Drax the Destroyer, man. Oh, he was so fucking good. He was so perfect. Like, this was a man born to play that role.
Mm-hmm.
And I was finally and I'm laughing just thinking about it because it's one of my favorite lines. You, Peter Quill, you are my friend. I can't.
He's losing it. We lost him. He's gone. He's gone. We lost him.
This green horse. And I laugh about it because when we were leaving the theater, my buddy, who's also a wrestling fan, made like the perfect, like, I laugh about that line because it also reminds me of his joke. Because this was like around the time that, like, Batista came back and was inserted in the main event of WrestleMania for reasons, and then did like the Evolution team up again.
Mm-hmm.
And he was doing like, this man with the big nose, he is my friend. The stale man from St. Louis, he is my friend. This red sweaty guy, he is my friend. It's like such a deep inside joke.
Nice.
Like, the red sweaty guy being Ric Flair, because like we always
Yes,
like joke
of
about, like,
course.
even more deeper inside was, we always joke about Ric Flair at that point being like that, the Patrick Mr. Krabs joke, like, isn't that red sweaty guy? Like, Ric Flair, isn't that red sweaty guy? So, like, when I think of that scene, it just makes me, like, I laugh my ass off at that scene. And then we leave the theater and he makes that joke, and like, go back to like almost crashing the car driving home. You know?
Nice. We no, I really did like, because this is the first one I walked into not knowing a damn thing about it. Never even heard of the Guardians before this. I had heard of Rocket Raccoon, and that was it. And like, kinda knew about Drax, but just the opening scene, when you're like, this is gonna be very different. when he's doing
Yes.
the monologue, going through singing with the lizard as a microphone. Man, when they cut
Come
back to
and get
that, when
your
they cut back to that
love.
in Endgame, and you get to hear that without the music, I was fucking dying in that theater. When they cut, he's like, he's an idiot. He's an idiot. But yeah, the Chris Pratt was such a just perfect casting for
And I
that
know he's very polarizing for some reason or another these days. I'm not all hip on why I'm
because he's
supposed to
a Christian.
Okay. Is that literally the reason why? Because I'm
That's a
not all
legitimate giant reason behind it is because he's a Christian.
like
I'm not kidding because he
that,
has
that's it. Like,
he has the views of a Christian. You can put that to your own what you want to think, but he thinks a certain way because he's a Christian. So people don't like that.
okay.
That's what basically became of it. I'm gonna be dead serious. He had a certain couple viewpoints, and they're like, "Why does he think that way?" Because he believes in God. And he's a Christian. Now I understand why I don't like him.
Okay, because all I ever hear about is how he's the biggest piece of shit that ever lived. And how he doesn't deserve to have a career because he's a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And I wasn't hip on the reason why, but I'm like, it must not be anything that serious.
It's
Or
really
super
not.
serious.
It's not. Like the worst thing he's done is get divorced, and both of them wanted it mutually. That's the worst thing he's done, other than have beliefs of a Christian.
I fucking hate.
That's legitimately all he's done in his life.
I really fucking hate.
But anyway,
like you've literally like made me go like I really just like now learning that news is like I just really fucking hate people on the internet now on our podcast. Like I already did, but like now it's just like fuck them all.
Yeah, that's a giant chunk of it. There's other tiny little things where he might have said stuff people didn't like, but essentially a giant part of it is he just believes certain things because he has a right to his own religion. But anyway, so yeah, he was perfect.
Though.
Yeah,
I don't care.
Exactly. That's what you do. The thing. It's whatever. I can do a giant chunk of separate the art from the artist, unless you're a giant piece of shit most of the time, which most people aren't as bad as what people say they are. But freaking again, one of the other ones where I'm like, okay, and I need to know how this casting went because they're like Rocket Raccoon. I hear his voice. You could have gave me 8 billion guesses. I couldn't have told you that was going to be Bradley Cooper.
No.
So I'm like, how? So did you cast Bradley Cooper and then ask him to do a voice? Or did you just have celebrities send voice clips in and then you picked Bradley? That type of casting,
Sean Gunn was Rocket himself.
He was the mocap.
The mocap, yeah. Because I remember when I met him, he had pictures of him
in the suit.
In like the mocap suit, but like it's with like in like the scene where you're like, there's the guard and there's him in the mocap suit. Yeah. Like at the ending of the movie, it had like him sitting down and like Batista petting his head.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. And I'm like, that's a cool picture because it's like, okay, like, well, that's yeah. Okay. Kudos to him because he did a great job.
Absolutely. And like there was that, and then you had Benicio del Toro as the Collector, another holy shit, they got him to be in this movie moment.
Yeah.
It's like, he's a big deal. Like, he's a legit, like, I only do serious movies actor. And then he's being one of the biggest weirdos that they've had in the MCU so far. And that's what I like when they start...
something else, like I mentioned, legitimizing these movies. When you can get Robert Redford in a fucking comic book movie.
Yeah.
Like say that to me, say that to a person in 1999. Robert Redford is going to be in a movie about Captain America. You're going to go like, yeah, like did he blow all his money on hookers and blow? What happened?
That was the same thing for me
what's he? What kind of roles does he horn himself out for? That's pretty sad.
Yeah,
that would have been the thought. But then he's in these, a movie like that, and you're like, unless you're just like a real big like cinema snob of like the lowbrow comic books, or you're just like a dude bro or basic female like that. Like, why would you like that? And like, that's kind of dumb. You like that, bro? If unless you're like one of those people, you'd be like, okay, yeah, why wouldn't Robert Redford be in Captain America?
Yeah. And it's one of those things where you're like, you give them a good role, it's shocking that they want to do it. But yeah, you get him to just be the like when he's talking about like all this stuff, and it's just his great collectibles, and like that started to be the James Gunn of when he does shit where there's 9 billion things in the background that you catch if you do. Like there was a Chitauri in one of them. You could have saw that there was Howard the Duck in one of them before he came out at the end.
Right.
And again, my God, they brought back Howard the Duck, who became a legitimate character who showed up in the freaking portal scene in Endgame.
Yeah.
But yeah, just the family aspect, all of it was great. The bonding between them, and this was one of the things where they started doing it in movies more, and I appreciated it. Where in Guardians 1, you don't just give them their costume right away. They didn't get the Guardians costumes until 3, and I wasn't upset about it that they didn't have them, but it was an awesome moment when they got them. So I like when someone will slowly be the thing, but not quite it, till you get that crowning moment and they're that thing for sure.
Right.
I like that in some of the newer comic book movies where they give them like baby steps, but they're still like, we're technically that, but it's going to be really cool when you get the full mosaic of everything. Yeah,
Right.
It's awesome in my opinion. And then like you got to see Thanos for the first time, and like the
Second time.
the
second time.
I wanted to say the first time was Josh Brolin. We got to
Right.
see Thanos. And people like to forget that was a very different looking Thanos that you saw. Legit 1,000% comic book Thanos at the end of Avengers, like
Right. Yes.
the face and everything which was a totally different guy. This one was stuff put on top of Josh Brolin,
Right.
but not
apropos
actually,
of
but
absolutely nothing. The
nothing.
But I found a Thanos Marvel Legends figure that was comic book Thanos, so I bought it, and then I can't remember what figure it was, but there was a build, the build a figure for the Josh Brolin, and I didn't want everybody from that line. That's why, like, I rarely have any build a figures because it's just like I have like an Apocalypse, and that's because I went out of my way because I wanted Apocalypse.
Yeah.
But rarely have any build a figures because I'm like, I don't want every figure in this line. But then I started looking at it and I'm like, I can take this comic book Thanos head off and put Josh Brolin's head on, and voila, I can set this Thanos up with my MCU figures.
There you go.
Ta-da!
Yeah. And they made him intimidating right away when he.
Oh yes, they did.
That guy's head clean off. He's like,
oh yes, they did. Like you. I'm an apologist for the DCEU because I do think that I'm not going to say it was great, but I do think it was critically under the microscope and a lot more than what Marvel was. And I think the fandom itself collectively went into every theater before the movie and started going, I can't wait to go home and talk about how bad this is on the internet and look cool. But still, what Marvel did with Thanos was how they should have been coming out the gate going to Darkseid in the DCEU, and that is the biggest fucking dropped ball of everything that the DC movies did.
Yep. Because Darkseid is that guy that you.
Yes. He is more intimidating than Thanos.
Yes.
My personal opinion from reading books with both Thanos and Darkseid. And yet you've got beaten to the punch with that, with for all intents and purposes, late to the party Marvel Darkseid. Because Darkseid came first, I believe, with Jack Kirby.
I believe you did, because I actually had a conversation with Jim Sterling when I met him at the 2000 at the GalaxyCon that was up in Minneapolis, where it was him and Ron Lim, because I got Infinity Gauntlet thing and had him signing it, and he was like, a little known thing about that, and he was looking back and he's like, weren't we gonna make that thing a beanie at first, but we didn't do it because it looked like Brainiac? He's like, yep, that's what I thought it was.
That's
we were
interesting.
we were gonna have like a helmet, but it looked way too much like Brainiac's symbols and stuff, so we turned it into a gauntlet. I'm like, and they're just talking about like making sandwiches, but with comic book history, like it's nothing. I'm like, what? It was awesome. Like,
But
yeah, it's
yeah,
yeah,
Guardians, again, you can have the funny stuff, you can have the emotional stuff. I mean, it leaned more into the side of funny than compared to Winter Soldier, obviously. But it's
yeah.
like, again, don't tell, like, I mean, I'm not saying you, but I'm saying, like, to the creator, don't tell me that you couldn't have kept with that dark tone in Iron Man 3 better than you did, because you fucking proved it in subsequent movies. So don't at me with that bullshit.
I love it. Yeah,
So, I mean, we could just keep quoting lines.
yeah. Oh
Groot,
God.
Groot ended up Groot stole the show in both the first two movies, and we'll
Yeah,
get to the second one.
yeah. The pelt. I don't think I like in phase two. I don't think I laughed harder at a line than "I will not fall for your pelvic sorcery." God, that was so good. Nothing goes over my head. My reflexes are too fast. I would catch it.
Something funny like that line to me, like that line embodied Dave Bautista.
Yes.
Like as a person, Drax the character and Dave Bautista the person.
Yeah.
Because I remember, because that was the whole Daniel Bryan year, with the Yes movement, and we are pissed that we're not getting this at WrestleMania. And he like did an interview where he was like, like Daniel Bryan's just too small. Like, wrestling's supposed to be believable, and like I would just, if someone like me fought a guy like him, I would snap him in two within like 3 minutes. Well, that's why I'm getting, and this is before he turned heel.
Mhm.
So like this is really like Dave. Dave's full of himself a lot. It's another reason why he's one of my least favorite, but I credit where it's due. But yeah, like he was saying like all this about like, like that's the person, like that's why I'm a main eventer. That's why like people like me get pushed. And he was like doing this rant. And then whenever I heard that, like, nothing goes over my head, I would catch him, just like, Daniel Bryan would never beat me. I would catch him. Like that was another joke we were making because we saw the trailer.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, this is going to be controversial. You're probably not going to agree with me because I don't know what your opinions are on this. But in my opinion, wrestlers turned actors, Dave is first, John is second, and Dwayne is last.
I
Because in
haven't
my
seen enough.
opinion,
I haven't seen
Dwayne
enough of
plays the same
Dave.
guy in every movie.
I can agree with that. He's either I'm super badass action star or look at me and laugh. That's
Yeah.
that's 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 Dwayne. I haven't seen honestly enough of Dave in anything but Drax in Marvel movies to have an opinion.
Yeah.
I've
He's the only one.
heard he's taken it so like he's super like
Oh yeah.
he's gone the extra mile to make himself a good actor, and nothing but respect to him for that.
Yep.
But I'm not gonna get on. I'm not gonna do something that's a pet peeve of mine and just judge it before I've seen it
Yeah.
to see anything. I can flat out say I don't know.
Yeah.
But from what I've heard, and that should not be the basis for anything. You should always watch or read things
Yes.
to form your own opinion. But from what I've heard, he has taken more steps to become a great actor that Cena and Rock just relied on their own charisma, which is fun, which is great.
Yeah.
But they just relied on their own charisma and go hot cast me for that.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Dave is like, from what I've heard, taking acting classes and plays different
Yeah.
roles where it's like he can be funny Drax, he can be this, he can be that, he can be
Mm-hmm. When you see
so.
his character as Mr. Hanks in Spectre, and then you see Drax, And then you see like him in Dune, and like when he there was an interview I saw where he's like, as soon as he heard that he got Drax, he's like, I went in and took every single fucking available acting class that I could. I'm like, I'm not screwing this up. This is an opportunity. I'm going to take it. And he just never stopped. Like, good.
When I met Sean Gunn, like the first, like again, I remember mentioning this in the con episode. Check that out.
Yes.
For someone who looks at Dave Bautista as one of his least favorite wrestlers, I really enjoyed talking to Sean about what it was like with him working with Dave Bautista, because of the three names, Batista's the last guy that I thought would, the last of the three wrestlers I thought would have a good career.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was like, he was a punchline in his promos. Like, that is like something that you made fun of Dave Bautista promos on the internet in the late 2000s because he was just dumb.
Mm-hmm.
He would think he sounds cool and possibly was given this line by Vince, and he would just sound dumb. Like, basketballs don't hold grudges. Basketballs don't fight back. And he would flub his lines so terribly. Weapons are not only encouraged, they're allowed. Like, yeah, it was just like me when I was in my deep hipster wrestling phase that I, look back at as like, oh, that's what I was. That was me laughing at Batista and mocking him mercilessly with all the lol Batista's dumb compilations on YouTube. So obviously I was skeptical when they cast him. But then when he ended up doing such a great job in all the movies, and as you said, he's, you know, trying to culture himself in the art of acting rather than just like, I can be a badass and a funny guy.
Yeah. Yep. No, I would agree. Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised, and every time I see him in a movie, I'm just like, I can tell the differences.
Maybe I need to watch more.
Put in here.
Maybe I need to watch more of his acting career other than just Drax.
He's in a lot of stuff, and he's done a lot of little budget films too, to like just do stuff. It's good stuff in my opinion. He's very good.
Yep. Regardless how I feel as a wrestler, Dave, I salute you.
He's a guy that, I don't know if you'd like this, people used to like him, want to be Bane, but now when you see him, when he slimmed himself down, I kind of want to see him play Hugo Strange. Because he's even got the grays now, and like
outside of the ring, I will, for just, because I knowing how you are with your thoughts and how you don't just rush to overrate shit.
No.
If you're putting that kind of, if you're putting that on Dave Bautista, I would welcome it. I would welcome it.
Yes. 20 years ago, I would have wanted him to be Bane.
Oh, absolutely.
He's Bane, but he's not.
And 20 years ago, you'd think he'd be Batman and Robin Bane. Boom, boom. Bombs are not only encouraged; they're allowed. Moving on. We have the final movie.
Well,
and of Phase 2.
I was saying, because technically, according to Marvel, I did relook this up, but technically the last movie is Ant-Man.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, shit.
It's really weird. We can start off Phase 3 with Ant-Man.
We'll start off Phase 3 with Ant-Man, because we've already gone long.
Yeah.
And we've gone long, and honestly, this is an Avengers movie. This is something I never thought. This is an Avengers movie where I'm going to be like, I don't have a whole lot to say about it. I really don't. But it's Avengers Age of Ultron.
Yep.
Now, when we went into this movie, I was already skeptical of it, not because I dislike Ultron, but there was an event comic book 2 years earlier called Age of Ultron.
Mm-hmm.
And it just was like, you remember everything I said about Iron Man 3? Like, put that in a comic book with Ultron. It felt like The Walking Dead with Ultron. Ultron took over. Mm-hmm. And then, like, it just kind of ends with them trying to go back in time and stop it. And then they don't stop it. And then Angela from Spawn is in the Marvel Universe. And I just remember kind of thinking, like, people like I remember going like, who the like, because I don't read Spawn. I'm sorry,
Yep.
but I remember just kind of like going like, who the fuck is that? Why did I waste all these money on all these books? Like that was kind of, Marvel was definitely not 2013 was not a good year for Marvel in my opinion. just for me personally, but so whenever I heard it was going to be called Age of Ultron, I just had like my heart sinking. Like, are they going to do this fucking? And they didn't, and it was fine. And I'm a Hawkeye fan, so this kind of being like the hey, enjoy the Hawkeye movie you're getting because you're not going to get one. That was fine. That was cool. I like that. I liked the party scene where they were challenging everybody to pick up Mjolnir,
Yeah, that was
and
funny.
Steve started to pick it up just a little bit, and you saw Thor kind of like
Torgo.
like nervous.
Yes, that was
Like
fantastic.
that was cool.
Vision just going. Just handing the hammer to him like it's no big deal. If you put the hammer in an elevator, the elevator goes up. The elevator's not worthy. See?
But this was like the epitome of sophomore slump Avengers. This was we need a movie to get to this next part, and that's it.
See, I'm a lot higher on this movie than other people, and it has one thing that you never get to see in any of the other movies: the full Avengers team on an actual mission.
That's true. That
And
is true.
I thought, I'm like, how have we not had this and anything else? And like they had shots in that looked like comic book panels that I thought was really great, like them all ejecting off where they're all in that splash shot going across the
Right.
screen in the start. Um,
Hey, big guy.
so, that is something that when I play video games, I do anything, I'm always, oh, big guy, sun's getting real low. I say that all the time. But that was the biggest case of, hey, we're probably never going to have any other old characters in these movies ever again. So let's do a thing with Black Widow, which I internally didn't hate as much as everyone else, but it was a
I
very
didn't
Joss Whedon
dislike it.
thing
it's
to do.
just so memeable.
Yeah.
Hey, big
But
guy.
you two done playing hide the zucchini. But I this was when Joss Whedon was getting better at doing Steve Rogers dialogue. They still had the language. I'm like, I understand. He's not from this time. The joke was whatever. You're gonna bring it back. Okay. I use it as a meme. That's fine. I didn't think the joke was as funny as what everybody else did. But it had a darker tone that everybody had been secretly wanting, which I thought was very good. Um, did you, before I go on, were you one of those people that were kind of irked that it wasn't Hank Pym that came up with Ultron?
I was miffed, but it wasn't a hill worth dying on.
I thought the same way. And the way they presented Ultron, I'm like, this actually makes a ton of sense because a guy's hubris involved in making a giant thing, and who's got more hubris at this point than Tony Stark? But so
I did kind of have I did kind of have a like, oh yeah, let's keep fucking tickling Tony Stark's balls, letting him have everything, oh, it's Tony's world, everybody else. Like I kind of had that sort of miffed it wasn't Hank Pym, but knowing my thoughts on Iron Man, more of a like great, yeah, let's keep sucking farts out of Tony Stark to make him just
I don't see who else they
to
could have
make
done
this
it
more
with,
Tony
though.
Stark and Friends series. Yeah, let's get great. Keep doing it. Keep doing it.
Like, out of everyone, at how they were going to introduce Hank, I don't know who else they could have done Ultron with.
It makes sense, but I will concede bias, and that's
Yeah,
why I
yeah,
didn't
no,
like it
I get
because
what you're
I'm
saying.
biased.
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
get
any
what you're
better than anyone for feeling that
no,
way. I'm
no,
just biased.
no, I get you. This was also like the continuing of the hot streak of Cap in his portrayals. Avengers is kind of there at moments.
Yeah.
And then this was just like asking about the kids being experimented on and all this and like the all the fight scenes going around like the motorcycle chase and all that. Black Widow again was great in this, even though they had to shoot this while she was pregnant and use stunt doubles. I never noticed. Um, there was the one of my favorite lines that Cap has ever, and I hated that they included this in the trailer. It was Tony says to him, "Well, we'll lose. We'll do that together too." And then he says, "We're probably." I can't remember exactly what he says, but he says, "Probably we're all gonna die probably." And then Cap just says, "I don't have any plans tomorrow night." Like he's a soldier and he gets it. Like people
Yeah.
die. And it just started to cement to me that Chris Evans is going to be one of my favorite portrayals of a comic book character ever.
Right.
And there's a really good moment in this movie where they're getting ready to go to Sokovia, and then Cap gets off the the Quinjet, and like looks over and sees this not great mural of like America or whatever, and the helmet making people scared. So he takes the helmet off for the battle to make the citizens more okay with him being around. Like I didn't notice that until the second time I saw the film, and someone pointed it out to me, and I went, "That's a very Steve Rogers thing to do," and I appreciated the shit out of that. The fighting the Ultron bots, people got upset because, well, it's another mass thing that the people gotta fight. I'm like, yeah, but if they just fought Ultron the entire time, you can't just have 6 people fighting one guy for 3 hours. It's get old. The nightmares. Go ahead.
That it was a fine movie. I just, like I said, sophomore slump. You know, like that. That's what it felt like to me. Like there was some good stuff. Some good dialogue, but it just felt like we got to do this to get to this. And I appreciate the fact that you look at it differently. But to me, it just felt very, well, we can't go here yet, so we got to put this in here. It just, trying to think of another like good example. Because it's more, I compare it more to a comic book than a movie series. It's like, like we're not ready for this part of the series yet, so throw in Ultron for an arc because we can't get to Thanos yet. You're gonna have to buy 6 months of an Ultron arc because you can't quit reading it because that's gonna have something to do with Thanos that's coming, and we've told you it's coming. That was how I was feeling.
Them creating Vision with Jarvis also I thought was really great. Paul Bettany getting to be the Vision was awesome.
Yeah, does it very well.
Yeah, and like you're very naive. Well, I was born yesterday. Oh, it was fantastic. I love that so much.
You didn't see that coming.
No, no. You did not see that coming? I like how it's like, hey guys, we're gonna get Quicksilver in the Marvel universe for a movie. Cause there was an interview with Grant Gustin, who plays Barry Allen, and he goes, "I'm shocked we got more than one season." And the girl goes, "Why?" Because it's like, well, it takes a very talented writing staff to make the Flash have an actual issue. Because when you start introducing characters like that, it becomes harder to believe that guy can't just go solve the problem. And when he's like, at one point, we had 4 speedsters on the show and we're having issues with muggers with freeze guns. He's like, eventually, it takes a lot of writing to get around that. That involves me not being able to run for 28 minutes, and then I go solve the problem. And I'm like, I get that. And then there's sometimes where, like, even in the X-Men movies, they're like, hey, buddy, thanks for making sure the X-Mansion didn't blow up. You get to sit over here for the other end of the movie so that we can have a struggle.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the problem with speedster characters where it's not as much a problem with Superman, where I will admit the reason why some people don't like Superman is more because of bad writers and not because they're a bad character. a
I
lot of people have problems
he's a
trying to
hard
create
character to write.
exactly to
He's a
come up
hard,
with a
but
good problem.
on the flip side, people take that and then just think that they sound cool because
Yes.
they hate Superman. You
Yes.
know,
Yeah.
Superman is not a cool character to write. Like if you, especially on the internet,
Mm-hmm.
he is not somebody that's cool to get behind. You don't sound very cultured by liking a guy like Superman. You sound like you're of basic intelligence and you're like, I like him because he flies. That's how you're thought of
Mm-hmm.
on in the circle,
Yeah.
you know. Whereas it's like one of those, no, like if he's written well and you've got a good writer,
Mm-hmm.
that's not the case, but nobody wants to hear that. They want to sound cool with the rest of their Marvel friends talking about, oh, look at the Superman fan. He might be, you know, uneducated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I digress.
Yeah. But no. Yeah. It was one of those things where I liked that they had a mainstay actual, and I liked how that's how like wishy-washy these rules for rights were. They legitimately based it off comic books where they're like, well, actually, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver were in the Avengers for a while, so technically Marvel could use them. They just can't say that they're related to Magneto, so then we're going to change the comic books later to say they're not related to Magneto and they're not actually mutants. They just have powers, but then later on, we're going to say they were his kids, but Polaris wasn't his daughter, and it's just going to be a big old smiles for a while. And I don't know where that accent came from, but. It just kind of came out of me. I don't know. But yeah, that was one of those things where the movies started affecting the comic books.
Yeah.
Because they're like, well, we're going to make it so the MCU.
And it was around this time was when they, had Sam B. Cap and they had Jane B. Thor. And I remember I was off doing, this was right when I got my job. I was off doing like a month of training for this job. You get sent to take a class and do the training.
Yep.
And I remember talking with somebody there, just like, Chris Hemsworth and Chris Evans don't have many more movies left on their contract. I bet you dollars to donuts that was done so that way, when/if they leave, they can keep doing Captain America and Thor movies with Sam and Jane and go like, we're following the comics, you guys. Fuck off.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, and I get that on both ways, but I can still. The actual story with Jane
It
is
was a
awesome.
great idea. I want to say
Yeah.
that for the record. It was a great fucking idea.
Yeah, yeah. The story with Jane, I will admit I haven't read an assload of recent Captain America comic books, but the actual story with Jane getting it and the cancer and everything, I was like, that's really cool. I don't know how you came up with that. I just hated that it's Lady Thor. We couldn't come up with anything else than Lady Thor.
Like something with Mjolnir or
because
yeah.
everybody calls Gwen Stacy Spider Gwen, when in reality, in her comic book for a while, she was called Ghost Spider. Just no one called her that.
Yeah. Well, we've gone over time, unfortunately. Is there anything else you want to add about Avengers 2? Just real quick.
No, I thought that there's chunks of it that I like significantly better than the first Avengers. The fact that we actually got to see a Hulkbuster Hulk fight.
Yeah.
Like the go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep is another thing that I quote quite a bit whenever I'm playing a video game. So it's just, there was a lot of everyone, like another thing that I wouldn't say the movie suffered from, but like people didn't like. This was a movie full of, we wanted to see that thing happen.
Yeah.
And it happened. And they did a lot of it and did it wonderfully. There was a lot of setup in it and that, but it was good. It is very much a James Willems, a YouTuber, and I'll end on this, is a YouTuber I'm a big fan of. He used to work for Inside Gaming and then Funhouse. They were a like commentary YouTube gaming channel. And he said that the easiest movie to write in a trilogy is the second one. because you get to build off something else, and you don't have to have a legitimate conclusion because you're gonna tie up all that shit in the third movie.
Well said.
Case,
like that is this movie to a T. Yes.
In this case,
but
the third
the
and fourth
only
movie.
Third and fourth. The only difference, and it's funny you say that, but like I guess the reason why I don't, and I want to say I don't dislike this movie at all.
You just didn't think it was as good as it could have been, kind of.
Or I didn't enjoy it as much as the first.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, like when I go back and look at other trilogies, I mean, I guess it's a quadrilogy, but fucking semantics at this point. Okay, the original Star Wars trilogy, Empire's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
yep.
First 3 Spider-Mans. Spider-Man 2's the best one. First 3 X-Men. X-Men 2's the best one. And then you're like, Avengers, and you're like, what? It wasn't? The first one was better? What?
It is weird.
That's like, it's kind of like, you're still used to that sequel either being the best one or setting up something, being amazing and then setting up for more amazing, at least in the case of the original Star Wars trilogy. That it's weird that it didn't do that, especially with how everything was with this with the MCU. Like you'd think this was a home run, and it turns out like, okay, they had a ground ball that went to the outfield. It got on first base. The runners advanced, and they were in a position to score. Like, cool, good job. You did good, but you were ready to see that ball go over the fence. Mm-hmm. And I didn't. So we won't talk about, because we've already gone way over time. But
we probably do phase 3 in 2 parts.
Yeah, we're probably gonna have to.
Because
we should have done this one in 2 parts, being honest. But
because you have Infinity War and Endgame in phase 3. There's no way we're talking about that all in one video.
Yeah, those could get their own like episode. Yeah,
they very well could.
But that is it for this week. Thank you all for sticking with us in this long episode. If you enjoyed, please like, share, and subscribe. Follow me on social media, facebook.com/athleticgeek89. And on the app that everybody claims to have boycotted, but I fail to see a whole hell of a lot of boycott, at athletic_geek89. And
you can find me everywhere at Organoid Zero, mainly on Twitch and YouTube. If any of you like conventions and cosplays and such, I am a babyface because I was just at Anime Milwaukee. It was a ton of fun. I met a metric assload of Devil May Cry cosplayers that wanted me to go to Anime Central. All the hotels are booked, so I'm sorry I can't go. Because Rosemont in Chicago is an area that I don't trust myself enough in to walk the streets at the end of a con. I'm sure
they have a good shuttle. Rosemont's okay.
Okay. Either way, I'm going to try for next year.
Okay.
But
let's say
I'm going to be ending up going now to another con that has actual Devil May Cry voice actors at it, so I'm pretty happy with that. But, so yeah, if any of you see this, Organoid Zero on Instagram, the next con I'll be going to is a day at Anime Detour, the weekend at, Midwestern Gaming Central, and then nothing until Anime 414 at the end of the year. But yeah,
and if I can get you out to Cape Con in November, I think you should come.
one of these. We'll have to see, because I have another giant con in November, so we'll have to see. But yeah, and then if you like other podcasts, I'm actually wearing the logo of it. Zeroing Out Podcast goes live every single Tuesday, unless we don't have news, which you don't just want to do like a 20-minute of nothing. But normally at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, we talk about anything. It's just a Google Doc of random news that we just go out and talk about. It's a random schmoz of crap. Yeah, it's a ton of fun. Check it out.
Check it out. And we'll see y'all next time.